and I guess this is kind of the point at which we have to make some commitments.
Yes, well, we're going to look at the style. Obviously, the work we'll do will be based on your choice from those styles.
Yeah. So where does it go from here?
Well, I will pass these on to the closer, who also makes the patterns.
Okay.
So the closer will be given the lasts. They will make the paper patterns. So those patterns will then be given to the clicker. The clicker will then bundle the leather for the shoe together, and they'll give it back to the closer, who will then essentially close those pieces together and stitch it all together. So we'll be left with the pair of uppers and the lasts. Kirby.
Jonathan.
Very nice to see you again.
So nice to be back in London, and I have to tell you after the last time we met, seeing you work on the lasts was incredible, and I'm excited to see this project continue.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the lasts turned out well, and they're in good shape to go on and make a pair of uppers.
Yeah. Well, now that you have a pair of lasts, are you happy with them?
Yeah, they look good.
Okay.
They may even fit you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they will fit like a glove. Bang on that first time. So we haven't really spoken much about styles yet, and I guess this is kind of the point at which we have to make some commitments.
Yes. Well, we're going to look at the style. We'll look at the sample shoes that we have in the cabinet, and we'll work. Obviously, the work we'll do will be based on your choice from those styles.
Yeah. And this is, I guess, one of the great pleasures of John Lobb, of course, is the fact that you have one of the most amazing cabinets of sample shoes. It's really more of a museum of sample shoes than it is merely a collection. And this is really one of the links to the past. They've been kind of accumulated over really the decades, if not the last century.
Well, we tend to keep on to good samples. If you stay in one place for long enough, you try and keep the ones you have. But they do age over time, and they do become historical artifacts in their own right.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that come in, just admire the cabinets, including other shoemakers, from what I've heard.
Well, the cabinets, they've been passed on from various premises that we've owned. And obviously, we've retained the old Victorian style cabinets, which give a very nice display for the shoes.
Yeah. Well, so I guess this is where the work begins for me, is having to make tough choices.
It's going to be a tough decision.
And big decisions here. So
if we're looking at...
So everyone on the channel knows I'm very adventurous with my shoes. They can probably already guess where I end up.
I will, obviously, true to form, I will advise you start with something classic.
Yeah. Although I have many pairs of bespoke shoes, this is my first pair of Lobbs. And so that's a kind of a special moment, I suppose, in everyone's journey. I want to start with something very classic, very traditional, very London, something that's iconically Lobb.
Okay.
And that'll, hopefully give me a lifetime of good use.
Okay. Well, I mean, the most traditional style of shoe, bearing in mind that we were bootmakers originally, but as time went by, we made more and more shoes, and it was the Oxford. I mean, the style itself obviously has been around for many, many centuries probably, but the Oxford is the one that we most classically make. And that particular style, it starts off as a basic pattern with 3 pieces of leather. And then from that pattern you might go up to something which is more brogued, has more decoration. So if it's a question of going from formal to less formal.
Yeah.
the Oxford itself is quite a formal style.
Yeah.
It's quite smart. And the alternative to that is when you start, I'm just a different shoe, but you start going to something which is more casual and becomes more countrified.
Yeah, so like a derby, in that case with the open facing.
Yeah. If you're wearing a suit, as you're wearing, the classic style of shoe to wear with that for business on an everyday basis is the Oxford with a cap. It has a little bit of substance, a bit of extra strength on the cap, not only for the sort of to take a bit of knocking about, but also you can get a very nice high shine on that.
Yeah. So this would be what you would recommend?
This is a very good place, as say, a starting point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a classic Oxford with a cap. Suits what you're wearing now, and suits and complements other suits as well. Black is obviously a good colour to sort of fairly versatile.
Would work well with what I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go for something like this in black.
Okay.
As far as swatches are concerned, I guess, is there much to see with black?
I think we'll stick with the standard weight of leather.
Okay.
There are black, you can use a lighter weight black leather or something slightly heavier, but they tend to be more suitable if your foot is more sensitive or you need something really sort of harder wearing.
Yeah.
But this stands the test of time.
Yeah.
And it also complements this sort of classic thickness of sole.
Yeah.
So this thickness of sole gives you maybe, if you were to use them regularly, sort of 2 or 3 years, 4 years of wear.
Okay.
And a decent heel, usually with a
dovetail or whatever
leather
it is.
sole.
Yeah.
So
what about the outsole? We do a black outsole on something like this?
We use these, classically we stain it black.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's
all the way through.
Mm-hmm. And then what about, again, just the shape of, the waist? The waist will, I guess, inherently be narrow.
Well, you have everything.
Not exaggerated.
Yeah. Obviously the waist is defined by the distance of the joint and heel. Mm-hmm. And, classically we do what is called a sort of beveled waist.
Okay.
Which is, they have edging irons which give a nice shape to the edge.
Yeah.
You might see on manufactured shoes that it has a square edge which runs all the way through to the heel.
Yeah.
A good feature of Bespoke shoe is that it has the hand-finished beveled edge.
Yeah.
And obviously the proportion of that depends on the proportion from the heel to the joint. Mm-hmm. And it has a square edge all the way around. One thing you might do, some people like the actual distance of the welt to be closer or
wider.
Mm-hmm. Classically, you will see a little bit of the welt from above. Mm-hmm. But some people like that to be a little bit closer, which makes it a little bit more they might think more elegant. But generally, as a classic model, you'll be able to see the sole when you're looking down.
Yeah. Well, I defer to you, but I would probably say kind of stick with the classic proportions here.
Well, I would say, there are practical reasons for all of these things.
Yeah.
And one is that if you don't have the sole sticking out around the edge of the upper,
it's just damage the
you're
upper itself.
You're more likely to damage the upper if you hit something rather than just the edge of the sole.
Yeah.
So there are sort of, like all these things, there are practical reasons for things being the way they are.
Yeah. Okay. Any other decisions at this point? That's pretty much it.
No, we'll see. We'll go on to make shoe trees. And the shoe trees obviously are based, the form of these is based on the form of your last that we made. So they will obviously sort of, in a way, replicate the last being in the shoe.
And is this done back at peen?
That'll be done at peens, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like everything starts and finishes, there in some ways. So what about the sock lining?
For this Oxford style, we usually put a sock just in the heel.
Okay.
The nature of the inner sole inside is that the leather itself, some people might have a piece of leather that goes all the way through to the toe, but you want really the moisture to come out into the inner sole. A lot of moisture comes out of one's feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every day when you're walking, it's surprising. So you want the moisture to be absorbed by the shoe.
But one of the benefits of, a natural leather soled shoe, and of course one of the benefits of a well-made shoe out of natural leather is the fact that it does allow the shoe to breathe throughout the day to release that moisture.
Well, it's unlike clothes. A lot of the feet can give off a lot of moisture.
Yeah.
And that sort of has to be absorbed into the shoe. And obviously, one of the reasons for keeping the shape of them, keeping that trees in there, is that when they sort of the moisture disappears, it keeps the shape. It doesn't shrink down or it doesn't lose its sort of 3D quality. Bearing in mind, all of this material started off in 2 dimensions.
Yeah.
And it's only because of blocking it onto the last and giving it that shape and giving the shoe the structure sort of in the heel and on the toe that it maintains that 3-dimensional quality.
Yeah. Is it possible to see the lasts? Right.
Of course,
right
I can get them for you.
Do you mind?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Right, here they are, Kirby. Wow. So these are the lasts. Remember, we made the single last. That last was fillowed. And obviously to match up and pair them up to your feet and your measurements, you might have added a little piece onto this last just to give you a little bit more room for that toe.
Yeah. So this is the one that you would have, carved first.
Usually it
right?
depends. Yeah, I think that's one.
And then you send it back to Peen. They basically copy it, return it to the fellow.
Yep.
And then you bring that back, and then again, based off the measurements, then
I'm working to just
work
pair
that
them
one.
up, and the most essential, obviously, quality of them is to have a pair of toes, so that when you look down on your shoes, you see two equal looking feet.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there may be differences. I mean, this one is a little bit wider, for example. This right one is also a little bit shorter, shorter and wider. This one a little bit longer and thinner. But those aren't details that you see when you look down and you view the shoe from above, or people are looking at you.
And this is, I think, in some ways, like the most difficult tension in what it is you do, which is, really balancing the aesthetics with the comfort and the fit. Because at the end of the day, you want a shoe that is well-fitting and comfortable, but also looks elegant and like a pair of shoes. And, depending on one's feet, that is varying degrees of difficulty.
So, absolutely. I mean, I'm guided by the classic form and the model, but I am also the parameters of your foot will guide me. And generally, if you work to a good proportion between the width and the toe, you get something which ultimately, when you put on your feet, just looks right. To the eye, it looks pleasing. It's like looking at a picture that's well done. You can't always tell why, but there's a reason for it.
And this is part of, again, what I think distinguishes Lobb is the fact that, for over 150 years, there has been this uninterrupted narrative passed down, from last maker to last maker, kind of narrative of how to do this well and how to do it correctly is very strong, here, which is what allows us at the end of the day to work.
Yeah, but it's interesting. They're all sort of details, attention to detail, and things, little nuances that you pick up when you're learning. Yeah. And also you learn and you do things, and you can actually, as soon as you do something one way, you find it does, you have to do it the other way.
Well, this is where experience matters, right?
Well, unfortunately, it's something that people dedicate their life to.
Yeah.
And have done. I suppose it's unusual that I've been here for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
My father was here from all his life.
Yeah.
So, it's a sort of work that appeals to people.
Yeah, it's a real tradition. And then this shows, again, the fact that, they aren't the same. They're not simply mirrors of one another. And so taking into account those nuanced differences between feet, you were able to incorporate that into this last by adding some leather.
Yeah, I mean, you might, some things might look at a bit pedantic, but I find that if all the sum of all these little decisions or little changes actually adds up to something which is has a sort of distinctive quality of its own.
At this point in the last, have you kind of settled in on a toe shape now? Yeah,
this toe shape, I've kept it classic and I've kept it round. And the maker, when he gets the upper, he will make the shoe and follow that toe shape.
Okay.
And had I made this squared, he would have followed the square.
Yeah. And of course, John Lobb making bespoke shoes, I mean, one can request any toe shape they'd like, right, I suppose, within reason. But, I kind of deferred to you, right, to use your eye, your experience and your intuition to give me something that you thought was appropriate. So how would you describe that? Because I can't see it,
Well, I've aired on, because I'm partly this relationship is with you.
Yeah.
I have got to know you a little bit over the course of the months, and I know that you want something that is elegant, that is, you're in the public eye.
Yeah.
You want to be well presented. You want something, it might squeeze your little toe or your big toe a fraction, but I think you would sacrifice that for a little bit of shape and style and elegance. Yeah. I might have made a judgment. Your feet might have been quite different, and you might have said, well, what you really need is the room and space that you need. Yeah. And so I'm partly tailoring my decision by my relationship with you.
Well, that's a fundamental cornerstone of the bespoke process, though, is that relationship that allows one to, such as yourself, to kind of read into, the psyche or the personality or the lifestyle of the client.
Well, you're always trying to assess it. You've got to remember, you meet someone for the first time, you've only met them for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're making a judgment on that conversation you have with him.
Yeah.
And one of those conversations is looking at what they've had or what they're happy with and trying to gauge what it is they really want from the shoes.
Yeah.
Because people want different things.
Yeah. So we've got a smart, round, smart, elegant, kind of classic round.
Yes. Yeah. Pleasing to the eye.
Pleasing to the eye, most importantly. Well, great. Well, I couldn't be more excited. I mean, here we are at this juncture. So we'll be doing the black cap to Oxford, almost just like this. These are the lasts. So where does it go from here?
Well, I will pass these on to the... these will be given to the closer, who also makes the patterns.
Okay.
So the closer will be given the lasts. Mm-hmm. They will make the paper patterns.
Okay.
Those
Is that
patterns,
done for every shoe?
Every single style and every shoe, yeah. Because again, they're tailoring the patterns they have to the particular last. Mm-hmm. So those patterns will then be given to the clicker, and the clicker is the person who looks after the leather and cuts out the leather for the shoes. And again, that is a sort of skill in its own right, because they're picking the best piece of leather for that particular shoe and style and cutting it from the right part of the skin. And further down, you'll see the sort of skin laid out, and you can see where you sort of will cut the leather from.
Okay.
And obviously, in this process, you're not making you're not using all the skin. You're using the best parts, the most appropriate for that shoe. Mm-hmm. And the clicker will then bundle the leather for the shoe together, and they'll give it back to the closer, who will then essentially close those pieces together and stitch it all together. And again, do the punching on the toes and do all the work, handiwork involved in creating that style. So we'll be left with the pair of uppers and the lasts.
Okay.
And then they will be on to the next stage, which is the maker, and putting the soles on.
Okay. Excellent. Exciting. Well, can't wait to see this come together. I'm sick with anticipation. But part of it's process, right? And it has to be done properly, and it takes time. And that is
it's
what
nice
makes it all the better.
It's nice to document the whole process from beginning to end.
Yeah. Great.
And also understand the vast array of skills and sort of that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, what's incredible to me is that everyone at every step of the way is someone whom has dedicated their life to their craft, right? And so, really, we spoke about this, I think, in the last video, is that the sum is greater than the parts, right? And you put, the experience and the aggregation of experience and knowledge that you have, 8th generations, as a last maker, in this firm, with that of the maker and the clicker and the closer. And it's where the magic exists.
Craft is essentially handwork, and we're working with materials. Yeah. And there's an element of human temperament in all of these different parts of the production process. And actually, when you take the stages from the beginning to the end of making a shoe, you have a range of temperaments and qualities that were required for each different stage. While a last maker, I wouldn't necessarily want them to be making my shoes.
Yeah. It's like, a trouser maker is a totally different person than a coat maker.
Exactly.
There's a humanity to a bespoke product that I think is captured. And it is made by hand, it's made by people. And knowing who made it, where it was made, how it was made, at least for me, is what makes, owning a pair of shoes like these John Lobbs really special. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirby.
Yeah.
you.